Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we have a very interesting character. This is someone who's quite young, but has got some unique things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about powerlifting. We're going to talk about how you can make gains. He's got a great site. His name is Juan Salgado, and he's the CEO of the Chosen Ones Training. He's been training people from the young age of 8 years old because that's when he knew he wanted to do this. He's been competing in powerlifting for 5 years and been coaching fitness for 9, and he's striving to be one of the top coaches out there. By the way, I had a background in personal training, both Matt Gallant and myself, the co-founders of Bioptimizers. So I love interviewing young and upcoming individuals in this amazing field. Juan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. That was a great intro.
Dude, I'm fascinated. I was on your site earlier. I'm seeing all these transformations in people, but I got to go back. I mean, 8 years old, you decided you want a personal train people? Like, well, you want to train people? What happened? How did that go about?
Yeah, so the way it actually started was I used to play basketball when I was really young, and I remember I was always so competitive with it. Like I wanted to win, and when you're that young, you only really meet up with the team like 2, maybe 3 days a week. And I was just like, dude, like if I want to win this championship, 2 to 3 days is not enough. So I remember I went to Barnes and Noble and I picked up like a book on basketball drills. I like read the whole book, and I asked everybody's parents after practice one day, like, hey, can you bring your kids to like the park like on Wednesdays and like Fridays so I could like run a practice just for us, because like I really want to win. And I remember that just hosting the practices was like even more fun than the game sometimes, I thought to myself. And it was at that point where I was just like, you know what, if I don't make it to the NBA, like I wouldn't mind being like a trainer or a coach or something like that. And it wasn't until I got older, when I was around like 18 or 19 years old, where I was just like 100% set on making that my career choice.
That's great. And then what happened after that? So tell us up to this point in your career.
Yeah. So then after that is when I started getting into fitness, because I injured my ankle. A really bad injury. I could barely play like my entire senior year for basketball. So I didn't want to get out of shape. So I ended up getting into fitness. And after about a year of working out, I remember I posted a 1-year transformation photo on my Facebook. And everybody from high school, the first year after high school, everybody goes through the freshman 15. Everybody at this point that I went to school with gained a lot of weight. So they saw me like in really good shape with like abs, and they were just like, yo, Juan, can you coach me? Can you teach me like how you did all this? Like I need to lose weight. So for about like the first 2 or 3 years, I was actually coaching people for free. I didn't charge people a single dollar because like I wasn't actually certified. I was just kind of like telling people like, hey, this is the workout program that I did. This is the diet that I did. Go and do it. And a lot of people would come back to me like, saying like, hey, the online program is good. Can like I pay you to like come train me like at my house, like in person or something like that? And it was after about 2 or 3 years of doing that I realized like, oh, I actually have like a whole portfolio of like all these awesome transformations. And it was my girlfriend at the time who told me like, I think you should just like do this for a living. Like you could do this even just do it like as a part-time job while you're going to college. And then from there, that like the rest is history.
That's really, really great. Now, one of the things that I noticed, which is unlike a lot of trainers, is that you do a lot of powerlifting. Can you talk about powerlifting, what it means to you? What was the background? What got you turned on to that, and why you think that's such a great sport?
Yeah, so the way that I got into powerlifting was through one of my favorite bodybuilders named Alberto Nunez. Shout out to Alberto Nunez, man. He's awesome. I recommend everybody goes and follow him. And what he used to do was he competed in bodybuilding, but in the off season when he wasn't dieting for a show, he would do powerlifting. And he said that he thought that powerlifting, squatting, benching, and deadlifting and getting stronger at that would build like the foundation for muscle. So when he said that, I was just like, wow, that sounds like really interesting. Like, let me look more into this. And when I started looking into powerlifting, because I didn't know what it was at all, it was like a sport. Like there's a crowd, there's judges, there's rules, like the training for it is intense. And from my background, like that's kind of what I like always gravitated towards. So to me, powerlifting is awesome because it really has taught me a lot about life. A lot of the lessons that powerlifting taught me, like I carried over into my business. So for example, like one big lesson that powerlifting taught me is that like you always get a coach. Like it's never a bad thing to ask somebody for help, to reach out, somebody who's already done it before that can speed up the process. And I did the exact same thing when I started Chosen One's training. Like I ended up hiring business mentors and coaches. I went to workshops. Like I needed people to help me because I didn't want to make all the same mistakes that I did with fitness. So yeah, now I coach mainly powerlifters, and I myself have, like you said earlier, I've been competing for 5 years, and I'm loving it, man. The sport of powerlifting is really growing, and I see it like in the Fit Expos. There was a Fit Expo in Los Angeles, not too far from where you are, and I remember like 5 years ago, the powerlifting booth line was like really small. But if you're looking at it every year, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And like, man, it makes me extremely happy to see that.
Of course, if you go back in history, there's a long history of some bodybuilders who embrace on, I think of Mike Francis and Tim Belknap, and some of the Franco Colombo were all had backgrounds in powerlifting and Olympic lifting, and Tom Platz played around with that. And of course, there was the legendary Louis Simmons gym,
Yep.
kind of like the powerlifting mecca, right?
Yeah.
Have you had an opportunity to go out to train at Louis?
No, I have not. But the powerlifting world is so small. Like I've met so many people who have. The gym that I actually train at, the owner of the gym was like, I guess he was really good friends with Louis back in the day.
Yeah, very intense environment. I would hear stories about Louis's gym, and guys would get in an argument or whatever, and then they would just clear the benches and just fight it out, and then that was it. You go on back to your lifts, and they were very focused on progress. Can you share with me maybe some of the differences that you find in powerlifting versus maybe traditional fitness or bodybuilding from your perspective as someone who coaches in both?
Dang, yeah, that's a really good question. So there's actually a lot of differences, I would say, like from powerlifters, like competitive powerlifters. Sometimes we tend to do like just really weird things, like really weird habits where like it's not until you're around like a normal person where you realize like, oh, I do a lot of weird things. So just to like name some of the like small funny things that powerlifters do. One of the weird little things that like powerlifters do is we sniff, like we really take our training so intensely and so seriously. Before a lot of like sets, powerlifters tend to get like really hyped up and jacked up, and they sniff ammonia like tablets. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm. Smelling salts, so the other people used to call them.
Yeah, smelling salts. And those are like one of the weird things. Like powerlifters, we tend to be very detail oriented, like a lot more than just like the average person who just goes in the gym and they kind of just like decide like, oh, okay, I think today I'm going to hit like a chest day, or hey, today I'm going to hit like a back day. Most powerlifters that you meet, they plan out their training over the course of a year. So we tend to be a lot more precise with our training, with our training. And a lot of the new school powerlifters, they're just like that as well in their nutrition. Like we have our spreadsheets, we have like our time of day that we're going to eat, and like we know that like we have to eat our post workout meal this day. We even like to hit like certain workouts on certain times of the day. Like that's how precise we are with our training and our lifestyle.
What would you say is maybe the best part about powerlifting and the toughest part about that sport?
Yes, good question too. So the best part about it, I would say, is the competitions. The competitions are so fun because if you've ever played like any competitive sport growing up, the environment is really intense and it's like every man for themselves, But in powerlifting, like your competitors are usually the ones who cheer you on the most. And like I've never been a part of a sport like that. And anybody who goes to a powerlifting competition for the first time, that's the very first thing that they'll say that stands out, that nobody is there like hating on anybody else. Like I've never been to a meet like that. Nobody really cares if you don't lift as much weight as the other person. They will cheer for the guy who's only squatting 200 just as much as the guy who squats like 500. Now, in terms of what's the hardest part of competing, I was actually just talking about this recently too, is because I have a lot of clients who are preparing for a meet right now. The last like 2 to 3 weeks of training, it is so brutal. The volume and the intensity is so high. Your joints are aching. The workouts are so long. It becomes very repetitive. And at that point, it just becomes such a mind game, because you look at your workout program and you're just like, oh my God, like this workout's probably going to take me 3.5 hours. And you have to like, just like tell yourself, okay, just take it one set at a time. And you're going to do that workout with just everything in your body sore and hurting. And you just got to suck it up and do it.
What would you say is one of the things that I've noticed with people who compete in strength and power sports is they have a different look to their muscle tissue. Would you agree that that's accurate? There's like a certain, it's like they've just got a different density or something to the muscles.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, we do. We do have more of like a dense look, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I do believe I've read some research on this, but don't quote me, that like powerlifting and strength training, like it really does like kind of build up like the thickness of the bone or the density of the bone, and it does, you do end up having this like solid look. And like even me, like a lot of people will tell me like, oh, you don't look like super buff, but when they feel my muscles, they tell me like, dude, you look like solid. Like if I was to punch you, like I think it would hurt my hand.
Yeah, two guys that I competed or that spent time with. One was Elliot Hulse, who's a big strength guy, power guy. Yeah. He says never goes over 5 reps in anything that he does. And he was saying that his muscles stay whether he was training or not. They tend not to kind of go away as quickly as, say, people in the bodybuilding industry. And then there was one competitor in Canada who I was never able to defeat in bodybuilding competitions, and his name was Kevin Weiss. Amazing guy and a great coach. And he said not only was he a world champion in bodybuilding, but he was also a world champion in powerlifting. He's still competing today at 50, and I do believe he's setting world records in that sport. So he followed the same kind of format. He would diet for the on seasons, and in his off seasons he would do powerlifting. So very interesting that there's some components there. Now, I guess I want to segue to the next thing, and that is, I'm curious because I have never met a lot of people who incorporated powerlifting as part of a physique transformation. How did you kind of come up with that idea, and how does that work with your clients?
Yeah, so the way that I kind of I didn't really come up with it. I really started seeing other people doing it. It seemed like that was around 2012, 2013. That's when I started really seeing the two worlds blend. And I really think that the person that made that popular was a guy named Dr. Lane Norton. He was the world at that time. He was the world record holder for the squat, and that he did that, I think, after 1 or 2 years after receiving his pro card in a natural bodybuilding show. And it was awesome to like see his training. Like he was super intense, but he wasn't like the old school typical powerlifter who was like 300 pounds, like really big belly. Like this dude looked aesthetic. So and his training was like really fun. Like I said, you actually felt like an athlete. And I remember to myself, like kind of getting to a point in my training career where I was looking forward to like my squat, bench, and deadlift. And I started just kind of like skipping my bicep curls and my calf raises, and the gym that I used to train at, I remember a lot of people tended to gravitate towards me because it was a lot different. Because I used to work out at a Gold's gym. And, a Gold's gym is like a bodybuilding type gym. Mm-hmm. So I ended up attracting this like clientele of just people who were just so interested in that, but they were also interested in the side of weight loss. And I told them, we could do both. So I ended up getting a lot of transformations like that. And then, yeah, the road has just continued.
How, what are some of the things that you're incorporating for weight loss while you're kind of competing or preparing through maybe not even competing, but doing through a strength gaining program, because they're not necessarily concurrent. Most people who are, like if you take a bodybuilding world, they're losing strength and probably losing a little bit of muscle, especially if they're natural, as they get closer to a competitive weight or their ideal like weight that they're looking at. And then usually they'll start increasing in strength in the off season when they're not so worried about that. I'm curious is how do you do both? I guess I think, and is there just a bunch of illusions out there, or do you have kind of special cycling of calories and training, or like how do you go about doing that?
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes, as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others, is a total game changer. Suddenly, you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. Most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with Masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and use the code MASS10, MASS10.
Yeah, it's not ideal to like cut for powerlifting meets for sure. That's why like a lot of people see like these like really like chunky powerlifters lifting a lot of weight. I always tell all of my clients, like, for your first competition, don't even worry about cutting. Just like maintain your weight, eat into it, and you'll be fine. So what I like to do is, if for my clients who are a lot more competitive, the ones who probably want to break like state records, national records, world records, I tell them to just try to stay within 10 to 15 pounds of the weight class they want to compete in. Then what we do is we do a slow cut where we're losing about a pound a week. We'll try to keep our protein high, carbs as high as possible, fats at around like 30% of their total daily calories. And then we start adding like cardio, but slow cardio, nothing like too crazy to where their legs are probably sore for like their squats and deadlifts. Then we get them as close to their weight class as possible, probably around like 5 or 7 pounds over. And at about 7 days out, we'll do a water cut, a water manipulation cut. A lot of sports do it where it's like you probably drink a lot of water and then you just cut it out. And then after the weigh-ins are luckily 24 hours before the competition. After the weigh-ins, we have a refuel, a rehydration protocol to get their weight back up. And if it's done right, people maintain their entire strength throughout this whole process.
That's really cool. Walk us through maybe a typical routine, if you were saying, just overall, like how often would you be training the exercises? Because people who don't know, you're doing the squat, you're doing the deadlift, and you're doing the bench press in a powerlifting competition. But how do you break that up from training like over the course of a week or over the course of a month? Like, are you training those movements every workout, every so many workouts? Are you separating? Are you doing them all on the same day? How does that all work?
So yeah, it depends a lot on like the person's fitness level, the person's like background injuries and stuff like that. But typically I always like having people squat minimum 2 days a week, maximum like maybe 4 days a week. That's rare. 2 to 3 days a week is the sweet spot. And then bench press 2 to 3 days a week. Although I do have some clients who can get away with benching 5 days a week. Those are like the anomalies, people with like really big arches and like small range of motion, like,
Mm-hmm.
and they can handle it. Their joints don't get beat up. And deadlifts, rarely will they ever go above 2. I've never actually in my career put anybody to deadlift over 2 days a week. The deadlift is such a brutal exercise, like 1 to 2 times a week is fine. And then just something that I started incorporating in the last, like I would say 2 years, is having SBD days Saturdays. So for example, that SBD stands for squat, bench, deadlift. And the powerlifting competitions are always land on a Saturday or a Sunday. So just to kind of get my clients used to like having their body train like all those 3 movements heavy on the weekends, I place that in their program. So their Saturday or Sunday day is usually all 3 lifts, and it's as heavy as possible.
So would you be alternating the rep ranges on the, like for maybe, let's say in that kind of condition, I would say they'd be maybe working the deadlift one day, the bench press one day, and squats another day, and then you do them all on the Saturday? Is that how you would stagger it, or how does that go?
Yeah, so I like starting off the week for a lot of people with the squat.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll probably be like day 1 is squat and bench. Day 2 is probably deadlift and bench. Day 3 is just bench and upper body. And then the last day will probably be like the squat, bench, and deadlift.
Got it.
A 4 days
in a 4-day workout week. Now, would you change your rep patterns as you go through the programs and stuff like that?
Yep. So I like to follow something called a daily undulating periodization pattern, where, and the person who made this really popular, or I guess brought it to the forefront, was Dr. Mike Zordos. He did like a really good study on this, where pretty much when you undulate the patterns, the repetitions and the intensities every workout, you tend to like, it tends to be better because you end up managing your recovery a lot better, and you end up kind of getting the best of all 3 worlds. So day 1 is a hypertrophy day. So that's the day where we're going like higher rep ranges. So, that's the day where we're kind of building that muscle, building that foundation. Day 2 is like a variation power day. So it's not super heavy. It's not super light. The reps are kind of moderate. And this is like a day of form practice. So this is the day where we'll probably practice our pause squats, our long bench, our tempo bench, our beltless deadlifts or something like that. And then the 3rd day is the heavy day. So this is where the rep ranges are probably below 5 reps, and you're getting a little closer to failure. And yeah, what's cool about that is that, you're always switching up. The joints kind of get like a little bit of break. You get to practice your form. It's really awesome.
And what are some of the things, what are the mistakes that people make when getting into this component? Because, obviously when you start lifting, close to, heavier weights and quite more frequently stuff, I guess that you have to be very mindful of the injury bug and stuff. But what are some of the mistakes that people make that you find?
Yeah, it's doing too much volume and too much intensity. And I could see where it comes from, because everybody thinks like, oh, the more you do, the better. And we actually have a lot of contradicting studies on this. Like there is some studies that show the more, the better. But then we also have some studies that show that, hey, sometimes less is more. So I think that a lot of people don't know how to decipher like what is the sweet spot for volume. And I see that most people tend to land on like trying to do too much. And that's usually what ends up leading to the injuries. So that's and powerlifting. In my years of doing it, I've learned that there's a lot of burnout. And again, I think it goes back to that people are just doing way too much, too often, too soon, and it leads them to just like not wanting to do it anymore.
That's really cool. Now you're running out of Santa Ana, and you're doing a lot of coaching and stuff. Who is your typical clients? I saw some pictures, and there's guys, there's girls. Like, how do people find you, and where they connect with you? Like, what's your typical client?
Yeah, the way that people have heard of me is just really word of mouth. That's been like the biggest thing. I feel like I was definitely one of the first powerlifting / weight loss coaches in Santa Ana. There wasn't too many from like when I first started. And I remember I like did my research on this. So yeah, I started posting like really heavy on Instagram, and Santa Ana is like kind of like it's an interesting city. I feel like if you live there long enough, you'll kind of get to know everybody. So yeah, I ended up working with a lot of people from like anywhere like age 18 to age 40. And yeah, that's pretty much like my typical clientele right there.
That's great. So walk us through a typical week in the chosen one's life. How does that look for you as a coach and a trainer, and as a young man that's making his way in the world? What do you see?
Dude, I love that question. I've never had anybody ask me that. So it's kind of cool. I'm actually excited to say that. So it's pretty hectic. So yeah, when you're you're an entrepreneur yourself. My day starts at around 6 a.m. and I get out of my bed and I meditate. I have my breakfast, I shower, and then I go to the gym to do my workout. I like to prioritize like my workout first thing in the day, because that's when I'm most energized. And that workout will usually take around like 2 hours. After that, I will eat something really quickly, and then I'll train clients. And I never like to train more than like 4 people in a row. I'm actually totally okay with like kind of doing split shifts where it's like I'll train like 4 people in the morning, and then after that, I'll go home and rest, and then come back and train more people like that. I noticed that I get better work done like that. I'm more of a pleasure to be around. Like I'm a lot more energized. And yeah, I think it wouldn't be fair to my clients if I was just like drowsy and like tired, So yeah, I'll train about maybe 2 to 4 people in a row, go home and eat, shower, and then work on some of the stuff on Instagram, work on like my posts and like content. I'll write. I really love writing. And then come back to the gym, train a few more people, come back home, and then work on some more content, work on programs. And then some days like I do that until right before I lay my head on the bed, or maybe I'll watch like something on Netflix, and then the days just repeat. And then I do that every day.
Love it. I had a similar process that I used to do when I was coaching people. I found that it was best 4 people. 5 was the absolute max that I could do in a row. And I felt the same thing. I would drop off and I would take a rest instead. And for myself, I would try to never go more than 6 clients a day. That was what I felt I could really be great with. And after that, I just started to taper off. I know some people go out there and 10, 12 clients a day, and I've never felt that they've given the value on that. So I love that. You love to hear that. So tell me about where you see your future going. What do you anticipate? What's your goals in the field, and how do you see that playing out over the next few years?
So this upcoming year is gonna be a really good one. I don't want to jinx myself, but I have a lot of clients who are strong enough to break records, and I already have about I think 5 people on my team that I train that have broken state record squats, deadlifts, national records. And then this year, if things go well, we'll probably add like 6 more people to that list. So if this continues, my name will definitely be out there. Not just in like my area. Like I think it'll definitely start to be a little bit more well known throughout the country. And other than that, I just want to continue learning, and just continue like catching on this momentum. Me and all my clients, we have such a good relationship, and I think that's my favorite part of personal training. I don't want to grow too big to the point where I end up kind of like just being the type of coach that takes on 100 clients and like cookie cuts every program, never actually builds a connection with people. Like I'm totally fine with like making less money, working with less people, just building a connection with like each and every single one of them. And as long as I can keep doing that, I'm happy. If I'm in the fitness field, I'll be happy, because this is definitely where I feel like I belong. And yeah.
Love it. I love it. One, it's so great. And man after my own heart, I felt very similar to those things when I was your age in the industry. So it's great to see someone kind of carrying the torch in the next level. Any closing words and where people might find you, if they where they can find and access your site and you and what you do, your social media, however it goes? It's time to tell everybody about where to find you.
First and foremost, the magnesium supplement was awesome. I've been getting amazing sleep with it. I take it every day.
Thank you.
I'll stack it with like melatonin, and like, oh dude, I wake up like I feel like a 6 or 7 hour sleep feels like 10 hours. Like, it's awesome. So first and foremost, thank you for that. Appreciate
Beautiful.
that. Next thing is people can find me on my Instagram, _chosen11. I have a ebook that I've made. People can go to the link in the bio. It's an ebook that pretty much teaches people how they can go out and balance like a social life, maintain friendships and relationships, have fun going out to eat to restaurants while still getting to their goals. And that's completely free. People go on the link in the bio. They just type in their email. It'll send it straight to them. And you guys can reach out to me on there. If you have any questions, people can DM me. And that's pretty much it.
There you have it, folks. The chosen one. Be watching as Juan Salgado and his powerlifting team begin to take championships and eventually the world itself. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Awesome Health Podcast. I want to thank you each and every week for coming out here and learning the latest, the greatest, and of course, the up and coming. Take care and see ya.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.